that was the scene at the Q at the watch party last night as the Cavaliers closed out the Chicago Bulls in Game 6 of the Eastern Conference semifinals. We're here on Cavaliers Insider. Thanks for joining us. I'm Joe Noga alongside Dave Cassilo, and we're going to be joined by our Cavaliers beat writers Chris Haynes, Joe Vardon, and Chris Fedor in a moment. David, excitement for the Cavaliers as we're moving on to the Eastern Conference Finals for the first time since 2009.
Yeah, I mean, you can really feel a buzz in the city. I think the way they did it last night just inspires so much confidence that it wasn't, you know, one of those grinded out games that they've had in games 1 through 5 in the series. They really just put their foot down when they had a chance to clinch, and I think going forward, you got to feel good about their chances to make it to the NBA Finals.
Well, let's go ahead and bring in Chris Haynes, our NBA beat writer here on cleveland.com. Chris, good to have you here again.
Thanks for having me on, guys.
Chris, let's talk a little bit about how the Cavaliers closed out Game 6 last night. It was what's been described in a lot of circles as a total team effort, but really the one performance that stands out for anybody who watched the game was Matthew Dellavedova. Not a lot of people anticipated 19 points, leading the Cavs in scoring, and really just coming up big in a lot of different ways. Tell us what you saw out of Dellavedova in that performance in the clinching game last night.
Well, he certainly stepped up when his team needed it most. He's been, really this postseason, he's been playing some really good basketball, hitting his spot-up shooting. He's been aggressive. He hasn't been hesitant. A lot of players have the tendency when they play with LeBron James to get hesitant when LeBron flips that ball over to him for wide open jumpers. But, this whole postseason, man, he's been attacking. If he's open, he's going to let it fly. And that's what they need him to do. That's what they need a lot of other players to do as well, is when LeBron James draws 2 or 3 guys over, and when he makes that pass, he's expecting you to let it fly, because you're going to hurt the team if you try to put it on the floor and give the defense time to rotate back over. So Dellavedova, man, he was big. Kyrie Irving, talked about, how much confidence Dellavedova is playing with and how proud he is that he stepped up in that type of situation, man. Like you said, nobody expected him, of all people, to have a performance like that on such a big stage. And so for him to do that just speaks volumes of his character and how ready and how prepared he was going into that game.
Chris, we saw Dellavedova's measurables go up. We saw his points go up. We saw his minutes go up in this game. Talk a little bit about the immeasurables, the defense that he was able to play in the game, the hustle, and just sort of the intangible things that might not show up in the box score that Matt Dellavedova was able to contribute.
Well, those are the things that we know Dellavedova, that he's capable of doing, picking up full court. Oftentimes, man, when he's in the game, the point guard doesn't get to bring the ball up because he's denying the ball out of inbounds. And then what that does, it may seem like something small or something minute, but what that does is that you'll force your shooting guard to bring the ball up, or sometimes even the small forward to bring the ball up and get into the sets. And oftentimes, the offense is not ready, or it's not geared towards the shooting guard or the small forward initiating the offense. And so that puts them at a disadvantage. And those are things that don't show up on the stat book. But like I said, we know he does that. We know he plays good defense and all that. But what he did differently was do some of the things that actually showed up on the stat sheet, like go 7 of 11 from the field, shoot 3 from 4 from three-point range. Those are things that we're not accustomed to seeing from Delly. So he had the whole arsenal. And that's, you can't ask too much more from Dellavedova, that he do the intangible things and also do the things that just wow you on the stat sheet. He did that last night, and it was at a time where the Cavaliers needed it most.
Chris, Dave Cassilo here. Dellavedova had a larger role because Kyrie Irving had to leave the game. What is his status now, and do you think the rest is just going to be able to heal this, or is it something he's going to have to be dealing with in the next series?
Yeah, what he did say was when he stepped on Tristan's foot is that it was like a setback. All those weeks of treatment and icing, it kind of goes back. But I think I said this on this program as well. He had 8 days off, during that, between first round and the second round, starting up to rest. And it's still, that knee, that foot, it still wasn't up to par. So this is, it's going to take for him to finally shut it down, and that's going to have to be at the end of the season before he fully get healthy. So this is going to be something that he's just going to have to deal with throughout the course of this postseason. They're just hoping he doesn't have any more, kind of setbacks by stepping on somebody's foot or landing awkwardly to put him in a situation where he's around 30%. But he says he fully expects to play game 1. He said if the game had been close, he would have got right back in that game. For LeBron James, knowing that the momentum that they were going on with that when Mirotic clothesline shump and they ended the half on a 17-point run, LeBron James told Kyrie, "We got this at half. We got this. Go ahead and get ready. Get healed, and we'll take care of this." And that's exactly what happened.
What do you think it says about the team that they saw an opportunity to close out the series and they did it really in impressive fashion, and it wasn't one of those grinded out games that they've played so far?
No, it's really impressive, man. And going into the game, I asked LeBron, I asked Black, I asked First. I said, "Hey, man, are you guys looking at this situation like you guys have 2 games to get 1?" It was like, "We're not even thinking about Game 7. We want to finish this out tonight." And they had that mindset. And Black said they haven't even spoken about Game 7. To them, they were looking at it as that was the final game of that series. So yeah, I think that just speaks volumes to the maturity level of where this team is at right now. Even some of the guys who haven't been there, they were of the mindset that this series was ended last night. And so, man, they're on point, man. I think mentally they're ready, they're focused. Physically, I think they have their aches and pains like everybody else. But I think mentally, man, they're as ready as anybody left the postseason.
Chris, you brought up the incident there late in the second quarter with Nikola Mirotic clotheslining Iman Shumpert, and that really did seem to be the spark that got things going for the Cavaliers in Game 6. What was anything said in the locker room afterwards about it, specifically about that incident, specifically about what it did to the Cavaliers and their mental state for the rest of the half there?
Well, Shump, I overheard Shump and LeBron having a conversation. And Shump was, he was still infuriated with that play. And Shump is from Chicago, and so he has family and relatives in the stands. And I heard him telling LeBron, "What is this dude doing? He better be cool, man. I got too much family here. He want to make sure he get home safe. He better be all right." So Shump was still, he was still a little ticked off by that. But one thing that Shump did say when he finally spoke to media was that, they wanted to retaliate by playing basketball. And that shows where this team is looking at. They didn't let the emotions, a dirty play, get the best of them. They took it out on the basketball court. And when they ended the half on a 17-4 run, Shump had 9 of those points. So it clearly got him going. It clearly woke him up. And after that, the Bulls didn't have anything left. And so that play right there definitely stood out, and that definitely spearheaded their run, and they just took over that game. And that place, the United Center, one of the best atmospheres in the NBA, was completely shocked and completely quiet. I've never seen that before.
Putting aside the home court, who's a better matchup for Cleveland right now, Atlanta or Washington?
Better matchup, I would say, I'm probably the minority. I think the Hawks are the better matchup for them. I think the Hawks at times go through some of the similar problems that the Chicago Bulls go through when they go into those offensive lulls or just can't score. I think the Wizards having Paul Pierce, somebody who has a history with LeBron James, and he knows how to guard him pretty well, even though nobody can stop LeBron. Pierce, he has his ways of getting in LeBron's head. And John Wall just being a speedy point guard like Derrick Rose, somebody can give Kyrie Irving some problems. I think the better matchup for the Cavs is the Hawks.
All right, Chris, there you have it. Wrapping up Game 6, looking ahead a little bit to the Eastern Conference Finals. Thanks for joining us, and rest up. We'll look forward to hearing from you as we move forward in the playoffs.
All right, thanks for having me on, guys. Have a good weekend.
Now, let's talk a little bit about that play that Chris mentioned, the Nikola Mirotic clothesline. I'm sure to a lot of the fans at home who saw the play, they were outraged, and they flash back to things like the Kelly Olynyk tug on Kevin Love, and they want to talk about that. What did you see? What was your reaction? And did you think that a flagrant one was a severe enough penalty for that play?
I thought it was a really lazy play where I think the original intention was to reach in and try to get the ball, but it got a little out of control. He started swinging his body in a way that he really shouldn't have. So I thought a flagrant one was what he should have been assessed on the play. It was, at the end of the day, still looked like a basketball play. He did look like he was still going for the ball. But really it was, as you said, sort of a jumping off point for the Cavs.
Well, it looked like a basketball play, but to me, afterwards he sort of turned and took a step towards him. That, to me, draws into question whether he was actually making a play on the ball or was really actually looking to do something physical there. I think a flagrant one under the rules was probably the best call, but I know a lot of people who jumped up and said immediately, "Oh, flagrant two, kick him out," and it's the playoffs. You're going to see hard fouls like that. Well, a guy who's seen a couple of hard fouls and has been close to the Cavs throughout these playoffs so far is Chris Fedor. He's been following the Cavs here. He was in Chicago for Game 6. Chris, good to have you here.
What's going on, guys?
Well, we're talking. We just wrapped up talking about the Nikola Mirotic flagrant foul on Iman Shumpert. What did you see on the play, and what did you think about the way it got the Cavs going there in the second quarter?
I saw a play that completely changed the outcome of the game. At that point, it was 41-40, and Iman Shumpert personally was struggling, and the Cavs offensively were struggling, and Chicago was playing well. It was 41-40 at that point, guys, and the Cavs closed out the half on a 17-4 run, and from the time that Iman Shumpert was clotheslined to the end of the game, the Cavs outscored Chicago by 20 points, 53-33 the rest of the way. So sometimes in a playoff series, you don't need anything extra to get you going. It's the playoffs. It's win or go home. It's all those other cliches that you hear. But other times you need a wake-up call and you need something to really get you going. And there have been times where teams have gotten physical with the Cavs this year, and the Cavs didn't really respond as well as maybe some people would have liked. This time, Chicago decided to get a little bit physical, a little bit chippy with the Cavs, and the Cavs, given everything that they've already been through this year, they used that as fuel, and it completely changed the outcome of the game.
Chris, were you surprised at the way Chicago just sort of folded there right after that? Like you mentioned, they went on the run there, and the Cavaliers were not going to be stopped. Were you surprised with how much Chicago had on the line in this game? The possibility that this could be Thibodeau's last game, definitely his last game in Chicago at home. Were you surprised at the way that not only that the players just folded, but you didn't see anything necessarily out of Thibodeau?
I just think they played poorly, Joe, to be honest with you. And that was a theme throughout the entire series. I mean, if you look at it, 7 of the top 10 scorers in the series were wearing wine and gold. Chicago didn't have anything except for Jimmy Butler and Derrick Rose. And they needed that third option. And in Game 1 and Game 3, they had that third option. In Game 1, it was Pau Gasol, and he was the star of the first game of the series. In Game 3, it was Mike Dunleavy. So when they had that third option, Chicago was okay offensively. But this is a team that has been offensively challenged. They've been uneven all season long in terms of that side of the ball. They've always been a defensive-minded team. That's who they are. That's their DNA. But they went through lulls throughout this entire series offensively. And that's what happened in the second half. I didn't think it was necessarily Chicago quitting or Chicago not playing very hard. I just think they were bad. And I just don't think they had enough besides Derrick Rose and Jimmy Butler. They got nothing from their bench the entire series. Coming into this series, so many people were talking about the depth of Chicago and the balanced scoring of Chicago. That was all in favor of the Cavs. There was no way that Chicago was going to be able to win with 7 of the top 10 scorers being Cavs.
How do you think the Cavaliers come out of this series physically? Obviously, Kyrie had to sit out most of the game last night. Do you think because it was a physical series, it's going to hurt them in the long run, or do you think the rest in between the next series will be enough?
I think that's a good question, Dave. And to me, I think everything that has happened to this point, you can go back to the Boston series, and then you can go to this Chicago series. I think it's good for this team to get tested. There are a lot of guys that have not been in this situation before, and they're going through this playoff run for the first time. And I think it's important for them to get behind 1-0 in a series or 2-1 in a series and have to win a pivotal game on the road. And sure, it helps to have LeBron. No question about that. But at the same time, I mean, you have to experience these kinds of things so that when you get into the Eastern Conference Finals or if you get to the NBA Finals, you know what's coming and you know how you're going to respond and you know what it takes to overcome those kinds of things. So the Boston series I thought was great because the tough, the physical play, that prepared them for this series against Chicago here. And when they got down 1-0, they didn't panic and they weren't worried. And then they got behind in the series 2-1. They didn't panic. They weren't worried. When Chicago roughed them up a little bit and Matthew Dellavedova got kicked in the foot and Iman Shumpert got clotheslined, they didn't hang their head. They didn't stop fighting. They fought back the only way that they knew how, which was on the basketball court using the scoreboard as their ally. So I think everything that has happened to this point, guys, I think it's a good thing for the Cavs. The only question, obviously, is how healthy is Kyrie going to be, and I just don't see it possible for him to get back to 100% or the Kyrie that we saw in the regular season for the remainder of this playoff run. I think he's too banged up.
All right, Chris, time to have a little bit of real talk here. Time to, put it out there about Matthew Dellavedova. We've gone back and forth, even in the regular season, just being down on Matthew Dellavedova so much, how he can get exposed defensively, what he can't bring to the team. What did you see that he can bring to the team, and are you starting to warm up to Matthew Dellavedova personally?
Well, I think here's the thing that we all have to remember here, as we're all excited about Delly, and rightfully so. He scored 19 points. That was his season high. It happened to come at the right time, and everybody has those kinds of moments, and you applaud the guy. This is an organization that tried to trade for a point guard. There was a deal in place for the Cavs to get a point guard on deadline day, and it fell through at the last minute. So they were exploring their options. They kicked the tires on some guys overseas. Will Bynum was a name that you heard linked to the Cavs. Now he's playing in Washington. So this is an organization that felt an upgrade was needed at point guard because they knew the injury history of Kyrie and because Delly was not playing well at the time that they were exploring those options. In the first 3 months of the season, he wasn't shooting well from two-point range, and he wasn't really doing anything defensively to stand out. He was tough, and he was gritty, and he was doing all those things, but he wasn't doing anything to stand out. So for him to step up in Game 6, a huge game on the road, Eastern Conference semifinals, kudos to him, and it shows who he is and what he's all about. Hard work, dedication, effort, hustle, character, all those things are fitting when you talk about Delly. There are legitimate questions about what he can bring, obviously, if Kyrie can't be the Kyrie Irving from the regular season. And I think there's a time and place to talk about those kinds of things. He's a backup point guard for a reason, guys. But if you talk about his contributions throughout this series against Chicago, he was terrific, and he earns all the praise that he's going to get today and tomorrow and until the Eastern Conference Finals start against either Atlanta or Washington. I can't say anything bad about the kid today. I absolutely can't. He was terrific in this series against Chicago.
Chris, there's 7 teams left in the field right now. Do you believe that the Cavaliers are the best of the bunch?
I don't, and I hate to end this on a sour note, guys. Are you kidding me? That's the question that you're going to ask me at the very end, and you're going to turn me into a bad guy? No, I don't believe that they're the best team remaining. I believe they're the best team in the Eastern Conference, if that's going to help matters. I don't think either Atlanta or Washington, given how they're playing and given how the Cavs are playing, I don't think either of those teams can beat the Cavs led by LeBron James 4 times in 7 games. But the Western Conference is brutally tough. And I felt going into the entire playoff run that Golden State was the best team in the NBA. And I felt going into this thing that the Los Angeles Clippers were going to have some kind of say in the outcome of who wins the NBA championship this year. The Western Conference teams are just deeper and they're better. If the Cavs had Kevin Love, I think it would be a completely different story. But it's going to take much more than LeBron James and Kyrie Irving to beat one of those teams out west. And I just wonder if guys like James Jones, Iman Shumpert, J.R. Smith, Delly, the guys who were so important in this Chicago series, showing that it's much more than just a talented two remaining with LeBron and Kyrie. I just wonder if they can carry those performances into the NBA Finals. And it's really, really hard for me to see that given the teams that they're going to be going up against.
All right, Chris Fedor, we know you're not the bad guy. We know you're still pulling for the Cavaliers, but thank you again for joining us, and we'll look forward to your more coverage here as we go into the Eastern Conference Finals.
You got it, guys.
That's Chris Fedor. David, you brought up a question about the other teams in the field. Last night we saw the Rockets come back from a 19-point deficit and sort of flip things over on the Clippers. Who do you think out of the West is right now the most threatening team to a Cavaliers squad if they reach the finals?
I think the worst matchup for them would probably be the Clippers. I think because you have Chris Paul, you got Blake Griffin, you got a coach that's won a title, and a coach that has beaten LeBron in the playoffs and Doc Rivers. I think Golden State's really good, but one of those two teams would probably be the toughest matchup. But even though Chris doesn't believe that they are the best team left in the field, they're going to have basically a 50-50 shot, it looks like. You know, if they're better than Atlanta and Washington, they'll be in the Eastern Conference Finals, and not all four of those teams from the West can get there. So they're going to have a good chance regardless of who they play.
Yeah, no matter what, you're only facing one of those teams out West if you reach the finals. All right, let's bring in our NBA Special Assignment reporter, Joe Vardon. Joe, good to have you here.
Hey, good to be here, guys.
Joe, let's talk a little bit about LeBron's post-game last night after the big win. He sort of turned into LeBron, the philosophical guy. He's talking about being good to the game and giving back to the game and playing things the right way. What have you seen from LeBron just over the course of this playoff series and his approach to how he's brought this young team along and sort of had them here in the playoffs and gotten success?
Well, what we heard from him last night was, I'm trying to find the word. I guess the way I would politely describe it is he must have been as surprised as the rest of us to see Dellavedova to his right and Tristan Thompson to his left. It sort of makes you take a step, almost have like an out-of-body experience if you're LeBron, and I think that's probably what he had. I mean, not only are those two guys sitting next to him because they played so well, but I mean they totally stomped out the Bulls, and he had one of his worst games in a closeout game ever. That's the second lowest point total he's had in a closeout game. And, he was one rebound away from a triple-double, but he was certainly back to seeing double teams and struggling to shoot the ball, and he had 4 turnovers, and yet here they are moving on. So, he kind of had that moment where he got a little philosophical. He also referred to himself as a coach a number of times. I think we'll all kind of let that go and move on to the move on to the conference finals.
Joe, there was a moment in the postgame where he was asked about whether he feels like the team is an underdog entering the Eastern Conference Finals, and what was his response, and how did you take his response?
Yeah, I mean, that was probably one of my favorite moments of this postseason because he kind of stopped this guy in his tracks. I'm not sure who it was who was asking him, but it was, fair enough given the circumstances. And LeBron said, wait, underdog? Me? Like, are you serious? He recognizes that, he is the lightning rod in the NBA. He's held to an expectation of championship or bust, and it doesn't matter who's hurt, and it doesn't matter who the coach is. And that is actually, I think, a really good thing. It's a really good thing that he recognizes that because, he will push to, not only win these series, of course, but he will kind of recognize that rather than dwell on, the Kyrie injury or the Kevin injury or whatever else is going on, that he will kind of take it upon himself to will this team to as far as it can go. And that is what we saw last night and in this series.
Joe, what did you think of LeBron and Jimmy Butler throughout the series and then specifically last night?
Well, I think that when LeBron doesn't have a healthy Kyrie Irving and he doesn't have a healthy Kevin Love, and the Cavs can't spread the floor like they're used to, then, a player like Jimmy, who's got really quick feet and defends really well laterally, can get himself in good position. I thought Jimmy had a nice series, and I thought he forced LeBron into some tough shots and forced him into some mistakes, but it wasn't close, guys. LeBron nearly averaged a triple-double in the series. He had some inefficient numbers at times, but this was all LeBron. And if you have any argument, look at the shot in Game 4 and what he did in Game 5. Jimmy probably had his best success last night, and for whatever reason, LeBron was much slower to attack. And if you go back and look, lots of times the Bulls were much better about their help defense, which just is made easier by the fact that Kyrie Irving just was not out there, and they actually refused to do anything other than help on LeBron, and basically as a result left Delly wide open for threes, and Shumpert and Smith, and those guys were alone because the Bulls stuck to this idea that they were not going to let LeBron beat them last night, and other people did.
Joe, is there any reason for concern based on LeBron's outside shooting in the series?
No. I guess it depends on what you mean by concern. There are one of 4 teams left. You're going to be concerned no matter what now. They're going to be playing good teams. They are shorthanded. Those are the things that you focus on. LeBron is going to find a way to be LeBron. He's going to put the ball in the hole. The shots did fall the other night. Not from 3 still. But he doesn't have to be the floor spacer. JR's out there for that. Shumpert's been shooting the ball at a really high percentage, and if Kyrie can come back, he's a floor spacer too. And so that's what I would look for there.
Joe, now that LeBron, according to Wikipedia, is officially the owner of the Chicago Bulls, that was a post that had gone out earlier today. It was somebody changed the Wikipedia page to say that LeBron owns the Bulls now. What's the next challenge for him? He's beaten the Celtics, who were a nemesis for him for so long. He's beaten the Bulls, who he's had success against. Is a matchup with Paul Pierce on the horizon again, maybe?
Well, probably not. That would be really interesting if there were. The Wizards were one possession away from being in the driver's seat in that series. And instead Horford, makes an amazing play, and now you got to think that the Hawks are in a good position. You kind of try to take this round by round, and you don't want to think about the next the finals before you get through the conference finals. And so LeBron will find a foil, or the media will find one for him, certainly, in those conference finals. But let's be real about it. The city of Cleveland has not won a championship in 50 years, and the Cavs have never won one. And, this is like the completion of the story of the return of the prodigal son. He's got to come here and win. And, at some point that becomes a story. Now, we're probably 4 wins from really focusing on that, but that's it. When the playoffs began in April, the Cavs were loaded and they were healthy and they were, the co-favorites to win it all, and it was hard to imagine anyone beating them. And now, of course, you can see a path where they could go down, and yet here you still have LeBron taking this team that's getting thinner and thinner by the day, and willing them to victories. And it's almost like the adversity has had this sort of galvanizing effect. You know, I mean, I guess you can look at it that way. Maybe he doesn't need a foil this time. I mean, there's been so much adversity and so much controversy, you know, I mean, maybe that's just enough. And maybe, you know, Kyrie gets a little healthier and maybe Shumpert is healthy by game one and they, you know, get back on the road here.
All right, Joe, thanks again for your time. We'll look forward to more coverage here as we get ready for the conference finals.
All right, guys, thanks for having me.
There you have it, Dave. Again, they're back in the Eastern Conference Finals for the first time since 2009. Chance to get healthy and rest up over the next few days. And, you know, it's down to 4 wins away from the NBA Finals.
Yeah, and it's going to be an exciting series. I think that people are sort of understating how tough it's going to be to win the next series because they sort of viewed Chicago as the team to beat. But whoever comes out of there, Atlanta's going to have home court, and they've been the best team in the East all year record-wise. And then Washington has tough guys like John Wall and Paul Pierce. It's not going to be a walk in the park. I do think Cleveland's the better team, but I think it's going to be a great series coming up.
Well, we'll look forward to that series and preview it next week. Thanks for joining us here on cleveland.com.